What's up, iPad letterers? Welcome back to my channel. In my last video, you would have already seen my brand new studio and I'm so happy about it, but I think we can improve it a little bit. Imagine how cool it would be to have my own iPad lettering art sitting there on the shelf. I think it will make a huge difference. And coincidentally, this is actually a question I get a lot. What do you do with the art you create on your iPad? Now, the truth is that most of the art I create actually stays in digital form, which is really sad. I use it for Instagram, for my website. I make downloadable PDFs. But every now and then I print it out and I make cards or I make presents for friends and family. And I really enjoy the printing process. So this is going to be a reasonably lengthy process. So I thought I'd split this up into two videos. In the first video, I'm going to show you my exact process starting in Procreate, creating a canvas, a sketch, and then creating the lettering art, including which brushes I use. And then in the second video, we are going to take the artwork created in the iPad and then we will take it to the printer and print it out. I will also show you which printer I use and which paper. Also, having two videos makes it a lot easier for you to refer back if you want to see one part or the other part of the process. So make sure that you hit the like button, because what happens then is it will add this video to your liked videos and then you can refer back to it later on if you want to check one of the other settings that I've shown you in this video. Same with the printing one. Once that comes out, you can hit the like button and then you'll have it in your saved videos as well. So now the first thing that we need to decide is what lettering style we're going to use. And I've really been a fan of big fat block letters. So this is the style I'm going to choose for this artwork. Before we start with the iPad, let's have a quick look at the final size of the printed artwork. This is really important. You really want to make sure that your setup on the iPad matches the final output of your printed artwork. This is a frame here that is not so nice anymore. It's got a few scratches here and there. So I've taken the original artwork out, removed the glass, and then I will be using this as a frame to stretch my canvas over. And this frame is 11 by 15 inches, so any canvas that we create that's larger than that will be absolutely fine. You can always shrink your final artwork to make it fit, but you can't enlarge it. That's why it's really important that you measure the final size of your artwork before you start. Alright, so now let's move on and grab the iPad. And then of course we are going to use Procreate for this. Let's bring up Procreate and then create our canvas. You can see here I've got a canvas already, and this is the canvas that I use for most of my Instagram posts and the artwork that I create. You can find it on my website. The link is in the description of this video. So now let's have a look at the dimensions of the canvas. So if you go to the canvas setting and then canvas information, you'll see that there's all sorts of different numbers and settings, but the numbers you want to look at really is the physical width and the physical height, which is 13 by 17 at 300 dpi. And that'll give us 3900 by 5100 pixels. Now you see that this canvas is actually bigger than our final artwork is going to be, but it doesn't matter because we can resize the artwork before we print it. But if you prefer to have the canvas at the exact size of your final artwork, you can certainly do that as well. So let's tap done. And then let's go to crop and resize. So this is bringing up the crop and resize menu, and you can see here we've got 13 times 17 inches. So now all you have to do is tap in 11 and then 15. So now this is the exact size of the frame that I've shown you before. And so we can crop the canvas to this. So this also allows you to rearrange the canvas on the screen here like this. So let's do it like that. And then done. So it's going to take a little while. So it's now cropped all the layers down to the size that we want. Now let's just have a quick look at the layers panel as well, and you can see here there is this textures group. This is part of the template that I'm using. Of course you don't have to use exactly this template, or if you don't like the textured background, definitely feel free to not use that as well. And you'll see here there's a guide layer here as well with the lines. If you don't want that, you can turn that off as well. And then I've got my little watermark here, and of course you wouldn't want to use that, so we can turn that on and off. But pretty much this is the canvas that we are going to be using to create the artwork. The first thing we want to do is create a sketch, and the purpose of this really is to figure out exactly where to put the line breaks between your words. Depending on the length of your phrase, you might like to try a few different sketches as well, just to see what works nicely. It's also nice if you have words that have more meaning than others, have them maybe on a separate line or make them a little bit bigger to make them stand out. So really the sketching phase here is to try out all sorts of different options and just play with it and don't think about it too much. I do this really fast because you just write the words, you write the phrase, and then if you make a mistake, you can always erase it and try again. The brush that I'm using for this is my sketching brush, but you can really use any type of pencil that comes with Procreate as well. Some of the HB pencils are actually quite nice. The next thing you want to do is rearrange the words on the page, and the easiest way to do this is using the warp tool. So this is a really quick way of rearranging the words. If you haven't written them exactly the way you wanted, you can resize them, and now I'm rearranging this here to make it centered, and then also kind of try and fit the letters in the gaps between the letters above or below. So now I'm going to do this for the whole lettering piece, and this sometimes takes a little while, but this is still faster than having to write the whole phrase again. So this is really nice and easy, and it will give me a really good base for my lettering piece. And then at this stage, it can also be a good idea to place your lettering piece in the center of your canvas. I accidentally pressed the wrong button here. So you just center it on the page where you want to have it, and then open the layers panel, decrease the opacity, and then create a new layer. And now we're going to select a different brush. So for the purpose of the next stage, I've used the IPL Hazelnut Cream brush, which is part of my dessert series, but you don't have to use this brush. I just really like this because it's giving me a nice thick and thin stroke so that I can figure out the approximate space my lettering piece is going to end up using. So now I'm just tracing my sketching layer with this brush and giving the letters a little bit of weight. Now, the process I'm using here is most probably a little bit different from how other people do this. I know that a lot of people create the outlines, but as you'll see later on, that's not what I do. I find it much easier just writing the letters and then adding the weight on afterwards in the next step. So now at this step, all I do is I trace the letters that I've got in my sketching layer and figure out exactly how much space they are going to use, and also how I'm going to use the spacing above and below my letters. All right, and then once more, let's use the warp tool. You can see at the bottom there, my letters are not exactly straight, which it doesn't matter too much. I don't actually mind too much if they're not 100% straight. So this gives it a really nice handmade feel. And you can see now here also from a distance that the letters look quite evenly spaced. So I'm actually quite happy with this, even from what it looks like a little bit zoomed out. And then now in this next step, let's create another new layer and change the brush. And for this step, I'm using the Totally Crispy brush, which is a monoline brush. But again, you don't necessarily have to use this brush. You can use any monoline brush that you like to use. I just really like using this one because it doesn't have sharp edges, but they are nice and crisp. So this really gives the letters a really nice shape. So now in this next step, all you want to do really is trace the letters. So you create a box around your skeleton letter and then you fill in the gaps pretty much. So let's go through all the letters and create a box and fill it in. And you'll see, even though this is sped up now so that you don't have to watch me slowly doing this, I'm going through this reasonably quickly, so you don't want to spend too much time doing this. Just really in this step, try and make
all the letters a little bit thicker and try and create a similar thickness for all the letters. I think it's quite important at this stage that you are not spending too much time, especially at the start of your phrase. That's a mistake I normally make. I'm trying to make every letter absolutely perfect from the start, forgetting that it doesn't actually matter because I can create a new layer and then I can refine every single letter a little bit later on anyway. So really try and get through this step really quickly as you can, and then once you're finished, you can always create a new layer, you can always refine your letters again. But this is really my biggest tip. Don't spend too much time on this, otherwise you might be frustrated or you might not like what you create. But I promise you, this is gonna look really, really nice no matter what. And even if you think this just doesn't look good to start with, keep going. And then in the next step, I'll show you how we can refine all the letters and how we can make them look much better than you think you can make them. And as you can see, this whole process takes quite a while, but I don't mind. I find this really relaxing. This is really one of the reasons why I enjoy this lettering style so much, is because I can just sit on my couch with my iPad and I can paint away, not having to think too much about it, but really just sit there, relax and daydream a little bit. And then all of a sudden I have a beautiful lettering piece. Now, while I'm finishing this part of the process, let me put on some of my favorite relaxation music for you. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the process. And then once we have finished the first pass through, let's zoom out a little bit and see what it looks like. and then see how we can improve it even more. We can also turn off our guide at this stage. It's probably no longer needed. And now let's go in and just fix up those little things that we haven't done in that first pass through. You might also like to rearrange your words a little bit at this stage. If you feel like there's too much of a gap between them, you can totally do this at this stage. It's really good because we'll be tracing all the letters one more time and really refine them now. And then we can also have a look at some of the gaps that we might like to fill out a little bit as well, and maybe even make some of the letters a little bit thinner. So this now is really time to go through again and have a look at the overall picture of your artwork, and then make those little small refinements that you might like to make. And also, while you're doing this, every now and then, I really recommend that you zoom out and look at the overall artwork to get a good feel of the weight of your letters, how they're distributed, making sure that they are quite similar in thickness all the way through. Although having said that, again, I don't think they all have to be perfect. I really think the appeal of this lettering style is to not make it 100% perfect. But of course, this all depends on your own taste and the type of lettering piece that you are creating. And then at this stage, I also recommend that you try and have a little look at the gaps between your letters, between the words, and then also between the lines, and see how you can find clever ways of how to fill those gaps a little bit, and see if you can make them all quite similar. You can use some simple tricks for this. For example, you can pull up some of your letters. So they don't have to be even, but just part of your letter, maybe just pull it up a little bit further, and then try and align it with the word above, and maybe create a little curve around it, especially around the S or the C. That's usually quite nice to align them. And you also see that in distance, the word distance, how I've aligned the N and the C to have that same curve there. That looks quite nice. And then just keep on trying and see what you can find all around your lettering piece. And the more you can fit those letters into each other, the more even the lettering piece will look in the end. And then you also see that the angles could be good opportunities for the letters to be more aligned, like the A and the N again. So there's many opportunities where you can try and fill those little gaps. All right, and now I think it looks really good. And now this is where the fun part starts, and this is where we start coloring in our page. So let's create another new layer and then change the brush. And for coloring in, let's choose the canvas paintbrush, which is part of the new watercolor extended set. And let's just paint some colors on the page. So at this stage, again, usually I just try and find some colors that I like, and I randomly paint them on the new layer on top of my letters. And just feel free again to experiment with the colors that you like and be as creative as you would like to be. You can't really make a mistake here, because if you don't like the color combination, or if you make a mistake or whatever, you can always create a new layer and just try it again. So now let's rearrange this a little bit as well, and then add some more color at the top. And as you can see, it's really nice and easy to just paint over the top. If you don't like something, you can just paint over it. And then in the next step, with the smudging tool, using the same brush, we can now smudge the colors together to create this nice blend. And this is actually a lot of fun. I love doing this. I really like seeing the colors blend into each other, and so I actually spend a lot of time doing this just because I really enjoy the process. I find this super relaxing, and so I do this a lot. All right, and then we are going to duplicate this layer and merge the two layers. And the reason why I'm doing that is so just to intensify the colors a little bit and making sure that all the letters are covered at this stage. And then we'll smudge it a little bit more, and we'll want to cover all the letters. And then the trick is create a clipping mask. So now you've seen how easy it was to color in these letters. All you have to do is tap on the layer thumbnail, tap on clipping mask, and then boom, you've colored in your letters. That's how easy it is. And now you'll see how I'm just improving it a little bit. So now, even though you can't see the whole background, this is actually the clipping mask layer that I'm using here. So now I'm just carrying on painting on it. And the nice thing is now, because I'm using the clipping mask, I can actually see the letters below as well. And so now I can make those small little adjustments and add some more color, and even maybe do some more smudging as well. And now, as a last step, let's add some splatters as well. And for that, we are going to go back to our lettering layer, changing the color to black. And then with that fine dots brush, you can just add some random splatters here. This is just fun, just to make it look a little bit more real. And I really like doing this just as a fun little addition to my lettering pieces. And then of course you can also adjust the canvas a little bit again, and just making sure that you have all your dots covered, and then we are finished.
All right, and that's the first part of our process done. We finished our artwork, and as you can see in the video, it was a bit sped up, but all in all, the whole process took about 50 minutes, so it's not too bad. Now, usually what I do with these types of artworks, I export them as PNG and then I post them on Instagram, and then they just stay on the iPad, which is really sad. But this time I brought my friend here, the printer, and that's what we're going to do in the next video. We're going to see how we can take the artwork that we've created on the iPad and then send it to this guy. And he's not always my friend. Sometimes it takes a little bit of trial and error to convince him to print this nicely on canvas, but that's what I'm going to show you in the next video, how we can make this really nice and easy and make sure that we get really good results every time. If you like this video, give it the thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to my channel and also press the bell button to get notified for when my next printing video comes out. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.